The city was always busy in the evening. People rushed home from work. Vendors shouted about their goods, and children tugged at their parents' hands. But at the far end of the street, something different caught the attention of passers-by. A little girl sat quietly beside an old piano. Her name was Mira. She was small, thin, and wore clothes that looked faded from too many washes. Though she looked tired, her back was straight and her eyes shone with quiet strength. The piano was not new. Its wooden surface had scratches and its keys were chipped in places. It looked like something that had been thrown away long ago. But when Mira placed her fingers on it, the piano came alive. It was her treasure, the only thing left from her father who had once played beautiful songs before life became hard for the family. Mira's stomach growled with hunger, yet she pushed the feeling away. She had only a few coins in her tin cup, not even enough for bread. The streets were cold, and the smell of food from nearby shops made her wish she had something warm to eat. But instead of asking for help, Mira closed her eyes and began to play. At first the notes were soft, almost like a whisper. Then they grew stronger, floating through the busy street. Her fingers moved with a grace that surprised even her. The sound carried hope and sadness at the same time. It was not just music, it was a story of a girl who had lost much but still dreamed of a brighter day. People walking by began to slow down. A woman carrying a basket of fruit stopped, her head tilting as she listened. A man hurrying to catch a bus turned, surprised at what he was hearing. The notes rose and fell like waves, wrapping around everyone who came near. Soon, small groups of strangers stood together. Forgetting their hurry, a little boy pulled on his mother's sleeve and whispered, "Mama, listen to her play." The mother nodded, her eyes softening as she held her son close. An old man leaned on his walking stick, his lips trembling as if the music touched an old memory. Mira did not open her eyes. She was lost in her world where hunger and loneliness did not exist. She played as if each key carried her heart. To her, the piano was not just an instrument. It was a friend, a voice, a place where she could be free. The crowd grew larger. Someone pulled out their phone and began to record. Another person whispered to a stranger, "Can you believe this child is playing like that?" A young woman wiped a tear from her cheek, not knowing why the music made her cry. Mira's hands moved faster now, filling the air with a melody that felt both powerful and fragile. She did not think about the people watching. She did not think about money or food. She only thought about the song, the one her father used to hum when the nights were kinder. When the last note lingered in the cool air, Mira finally opened her eyes. For a moment there was silence. The crowd seemed frozen as if the music still held them. Then suddenly the street filled with claps and cheers. People smiled. Some even shouted words of praise. The sound was so loud that Mira flinched. She had not expected anyone to notice. Coins began to drop into her tin cup. First one, then another, until it was nearly full. Mira stared at it with wide eyes. She had never seen so much money in one place. Her hands trembled as she touched the edge of the cup, making sure it was real. The people did not leave quickly. They wanted her to play again. Some stayed just to look at her, whispering about how such a small girl could play like a master. A man in a suit bent down and said softly, "You have a gift, child. Never stop." Then he placed a bill into her cup, far more than she had ever held in her hand. Mira felt her throat tighten. She had only wanted enough to eat that night. She had not expected kindness, not from strangers. As the crowd slowly began to move again, some people looked back one last time as if they had witnessed something rare. The little girl sat there, her heart beating fast. She did not know what tomorrow would bring, but that night she knew something had changed. She was no longer just a hungry child on a street corner. She was Mira, the girl who could make a whole city stop and listen. And though she did not yet understand it, this was only the beginning of a story that would soon travel far beyond that street. The night air was cool as Mira carried the old tin cup close to her chest. It was heavier than before, filled with coins and a few folded notes. She could hardly believe that all of this had come from her music. Her stomach ached with hunger, but for the first time in a long while there was hope in her heart. She walked slowly down the street, careful not to spill anything. Her shoes were worn and the cold ground pressed against her thin soles, but Mira did not care. She was thinking about what she would buy to eat. Maybe a piece of bread or maybe something warm like soup. She thought about her little brother, too, who was waiting in the small shelter they shared. His name was Tom, and he was only 6 years old. When Mira reached the small corner where she and Tom usually stayed, she found him curled up under an old blanket. His eyes lit up when he saw her. "Mira, you're back," he said in a soft voice. "Yes, Tom," Mira replied, smiling for the first time that day. She opened the cup and showed him the coins. His eyes grew wide with wonder. "Look how much we got today. We can eat and maybe even save something for tomorrow." Tom clapped his small hands, and the sound was sweeter to Mira than the applause she had heard earlier. Together they went to a food stall nearby, where the smell of soup made their mouths water. Mira placed a few coins on the counter and asked for 2 bowls. The man behind the stall looked at her kindly. He had seen her before, always passing by but rarely buying anything. Tonight he gave her extra bread with the soup and said, "Eat well, little ones." They sat on the steps and ate together. The warmth of the food spread through their bodies, making them forget the cold for a while. Tom slurped his soup happily, and Mira laughed as she watched him. For the first time in many months, they went to sleep with full stomachs. The next day, Mira returned to the same street with her piano. She placed the tin cup beside it and began to play again. People recognized her. Some even came back just to hear her music once more. The same woman with the fruit basket stopped again, smiling as she listened. The old man with the walking stick returned, leaning closer to catch every note. By midday, a larger crowd had gathered than the day before. Some people recorded her, and others whispered to each other about the little girl with the golden hands. Mira played song after song, her face calm but her heart full of excitement. She could see the cup filling faster now, with coins and even more folded notes. But it was not only money that filled the air around her. It was something else, something Mira had never felt before. It was respect. People were not just giving her coins because they pitied her. They were giving because they saw her talent, her gift, and they wanted to support it. That thought gave her courage, and her music grew even stronger. When she stopped to rest, a man stepped forward from the crowd. He wore glasses and carried a notebook in his hand. He introduced himself as Mr. Allen, a teacher from a nearby music school. "You play beautifully," he said. "Where did you learn?" Mira hesitated, then whispered, "From my father. He taught me before he was gone." She lowered her eyes, not wanting to say more. Mr. Allen nodded gently. He could see the pain in her eyes, but also the strength. "Would you like to come to the school? I could help you learn more and maybe even give you a chance to play in front of others." Mira was shocked. The idea of stepping into a school, sitting at a proper piano, and learning like other children seemed like a dream. She did not know what to say. She looked at Tom, who was standing nearby holding the cup. His eyes were wide with hope. "Think about it," Mr. Allen said kindly. He handed her a card with his name and the address of the school. Then he placed a note into her cup before walking away. That evening, Mira counted the coins again. There was more money than yesterday, enough for several meals. But more than the money, there was a feeling she could not describe. She held the card tightly in her hand. Could this be the path to a new life? Tom looked up at her and asked, "Mira, are we going to the school?" Mira hugged him gently and said, "Maybe, Tom. Maybe tomorrow we will see." As the sun set, the street grew quieter, but the memory of her music still lingered in the hearts of those who had stopped to listen. And somewhere deep inside, Mira felt that something bigger was waiting for her, something she could not yet imagine. This was no longer just about playing for food. It was becoming a journey that might change her life forever. The morning sun rose gently over the city, painting the streets with golden light. Mira pushed the piano to her usual corner while Tom skipped beside her, holding the tin cup. The night before had been warmer than most, not because of the blanket they shared, but because of the full stomachs and the hope of something new. Mira kept glancing at the small card in her pocket, the one Mr. Allen had given her. As she placed the piano in position, Tom asked, "Are we going to the school today?" His eyes were bright, as if the card itself promised magic. "Not yet," Mira said softly. "We will see. First, let us play." She knew the school might be real, but her heart was filled with both hope and fear. What if it was too expensive? What if they turned her away because she had no proper clothes or no family to speak for her? Mira set her hands on the keys and the music began again. The notes floated through the air, weaving around the noise of traffic and chatter. Today, however, the crowd formed more quickly. Word had spread. People wanted to hear the girl with the golden fingers. Some came out of curiosity, others because they had been moved the day before. A young woman carrying a camera knelt in front of Mira, recording every movement of her hands. She whispered to her friend, "This will go viral. Everyone must hear her." Another person streamed the performance live, sending Mira's music far beyond the street. Mira did not know any of this. She was lost in the world of her song, her eyes closed, her small body swaying with the rhythm. Tom watched proudly, standing near the cup. Each clink of a coin made him smile. He felt important, like the guardian of their treasure. From time to time, he looked at Mira with admiration, as if she were the greatest musician in the world. When Mira paused for breath, she opened her eyes and noticed the crowd was larger than ever. Children sat on the pavement, parents stood behind them, and even shopkeepers leaned on their doors to listen. The applause was louder, longer, warmer. Mira felt her cheeks flush. She was not used to attention, but she could not deny that the sound filled her heart with joy. In the middle of the crowd, Mr. Allen appeared again. This time he stood quietly, letting others clap and cheer. When the noise calmed, he stepped forward. "Mira," he said, his voice kind but firm, "you must come with me to the school. Your gift should not remain hidden on the street." The crowd agreed. Some people called out, "Yes, she belongs on a stage." Others nodded, saying, "She has talent. She must be trained." Mira bit her lip, unsure. She looked down at her faded dress, her worn shoes, and her little brother holding the cup. She whispered, "I cannot. We have no money for such things." Mr. Allen shook his head gently. "Child, sometimes the world gives us gifts without asking for payment. Just come with me tomorrow. There will be no cost for you." Mira stared at him, her heart racing. Could it be true? A chance to step inside a real school, to touch a grand piano, to learn more than she ever dreamed. She wanted to believe, but fear still clung to her. After Mr. Allen left, Mira and Tom gathered their things. The cup was heavy again, enough for food and even a little to save. That evening, as they sat eating bread and soup, Tom spoke with excitement. "Mira, you must go. You are better than anyone. The man said it is free. Maybe this is our chance." Mira looked at her brother's eager face. She thought about their father's old songs, about the piano he had left behind. She remembered the way strangers had cried, clapped, and stood still because of her music. Perhaps it was time to try. The next morning, Mira woke earlier than usual. She wore the cleanest dress she had, though it was still worn. She tied her hair neatly and held Tom's hand tightly. Together they walked to the address written on the card. The building was tall and bright, with wide doors and polished steps. Children in neat clothes entered with laughter, carrying music sheets and books. Mira's heart pounded. She whispered to Tom, "Do we belong here?" Tom squeezed her hand. "You belong everywhere your music goes." They stepped inside, the sound of instruments filling the air. Pianos, violins, and voices blended together in harmony. Mira felt small among the crowd, but also strangely at home. Mr. Allen greeted them warmly and led them to a room with a large piano, its surface shining under the light. "Play something," he said gently. Mira sat down, her hands trembling. She touched the keys, so smooth compared to her old piano on the street. Then she began to play. At first her fingers hesitated, but soon the music poured out, filling the room with the same magic that had stopped strangers on the street. Teachers passing by stopped to listen. Students peered through the doorway, their whispers rising. When she finished, the room was silent for a long moment, and then applause filled the air. It was not the applause of pity or surprise, but the applause of respect. Mr. Allen smiled. "Welcome, Mira. This will be your new home for music." Mira's eyes filled with tears. She looked at Tom, who grinned from ear to ear. For the first time, she felt like their lives might change. The street had given her hunger, but music was about to give her a future. And so a new chapter began. Mira could not believe what had happened. One day she had been playing her old piano on the street for food, and the next day she was sitting inside a real music school. The walls of the building were filled with pictures of famous musicians. The air carried the sound of many instruments, some she had never seen before. Everywhere she looked, she saw children dressed in neat uniforms carrying books and sheet music. They looked confident, like they belonged here. Mira felt shy, as if she was too small for this world, but Mr. Allen walked beside her, his calm voice giving her courage. "Do not be afraid," he said. "Music belongs to everyone. You are here because you have something special. Trust yourself." Mira nodded quietly, though her heart beat fast. Tom walked close to her, holding her hand. His little eyes sparkled as he looked at the polished floors and wide halls. To him, this was a castle, and his sister was the princess entering it. Mr. Allen led them into a bright classroom where a grand piano stood at the center. The keys gleamed like pearls, and the wooden body shone under the light. Mira had never seen anything so beautiful. She touched the surface gently, almost afraid it might disappear. "Go on," Mr. Allen encouraged. "Play something. Show the others what you can do." At first, Mira hesitated. The children in the room whispered to each other, some with curious smiles, others with doubtful eyes. They wondered why a girl in old clothes, without books or a uniform, had been brought here. Mira took a deep breath and placed her fingers on the keys. The first notes were soft, almost uncertain, but soon the music grew strong. The melody rose and filled the classroom with warmth. The whispers stopped. Every child turned to listen. Even the teacher standing nearby froze, her hand stilling in midair as the music wrapped around her. Mira played with her heart, remembering her father's songs, the cold nights on the street, and the hope that had brought her here. When the last note faded, silence followed. Then slowly, claps filled the room. The teacher stepped forward, her eyes wide with amazement. "Child," she said softly, "where did you learn this?" "My father taught me," Mira answered quietly. The teacher exchanged a glance with Mr. Allen, who nodded. "She has a natural gift," he explained. "I believe she belongs here." The teacher smiled kindly. "Yes, she does. With training, she can go far." The children crowded around Mira, their earlier doubts turning into admiration. Some asked her name. Others wanted to know if she would play again. For the first time, Mira felt welcome, as if she was not just a girl from the street, but a student among them. The rest of the day passed like a dream. Mira was given simple lessons, learning how to read basic notes and practice scales. It was hard, but she listened carefully, eager to learn. She stayed longer than the other students, her fingers repeating each exercise until she got it right. Tom sat quietly in the corner, watching proudly. Though he was younger, he understood that something important was happening. He saw his sister's eyes shining in a way he had not seen since their father was alive. At the end of the lesson, Mr. Allen spoke to Mira again. "You will come here every day," he said. "Do not worry about money. The school will take care of it. You must only bring your heart and your music." Mira's throat tightened with emotion. She whispered, "Thank you, sir." That night, as Mira and Tom walked back to their small shelter, the stars seemed brighter. They shared a simple meal bought with the coins from the cup, but it tasted sweeter than ever. They talked about the school, about the grand piano, about the kind teacher. Tom said, "One day you will play on a big stage, Mira. Everyone will know your name." Mira laughed softly, shaking her head. "I do not know about that, Tom. But I will keep playing." That is enough. Still in her heart, she wondered, could her brother be right? Could her music truly reach farther than the streets? The next days followed in the same way. Each morning, Mira played on the street for a while, because she still needed money for food. More people came each time, and some even waited for her. They brought friends, saying, "You must hear her." Her music spread quickly, and strangers began to recognize her as the little girl with the piano. Then, after finishing on the street, she would walk to the school, where Mr. Allen and the teacher guided her. She learned fast, as if her fingers already knew what to do, waiting only for the names of the notes and the structure of the songs. Some students admired her, but others. The days leading up to the concert passed quickly, but for Mira each hour felt like a test. Every morning she pushed her piano to the corner of the street, playing the songs that now drew crowds larger than ever. Her tin cup filled with coins, sometimes even with notes, and people often told her how much her music touched them. Yet even as she smiled, her mind was on the concert. When she reached the music school each afternoon, she sat at the grand piano and practiced for hours. The teacher guided her with patience, showing her how to read the notes, when to press gently, and when to strike with strength. Mira's fingers were quick to learn, but her heart was nervous. One evening, as she practiced alone, Tom sat in the corner, swinging his legs. He watched her with pride. "Mira," he said softly, "you are going to be the best one there." Mira shook her head, her eyes fixed on the keys. "No, Tom. The other children have been learning for years. They know so much more than me." "I'm just a girl from the street." Tom frowned and stood up. He walked to her side and placed his small hand on hers. But you have something they do not have. You play from your heart. That is why people stop on the street. That is why they cry when they hear you. That is why I believe in you. His words warmed her more than the blanket they shared on cold nights. Mira smiled and hugged him tightly. Thank you, Tom. I will try my best. The day of the concert arrived. The school hall was decorated with flowers and shining lights. Parents and guests filled the seats, their voices buzzing with excitement. The students wore neat uniforms, their shoes polished, their hair brushed. Mira sat quietly in the corner, wearing her cleanest dress. It was plain compared to the others, but she held her head high. The teacher walked over and placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. Do not be afraid, Mira. Remember, music is not about what you wear. It is about what you share. Mira nodded, though her heart pounded. She peeked into the audience and spotted Tom in the front row. He waved at her with both hands, his smile wide and full of trust. That gave her strength. The concert began with other students performing first. Some played violins, others sang songs, and a few played the piano. The audience clapped politely after each performance. Mira listened carefully, amazed at their skill, but also reminded that she was different. She did not play with polished technique, but with emotion. Finally, it was her turn. The teacher announced her name, and a hush fell over the hall. Some people in the audience whispered, recognizing her as the girl from the street. Mira walked slowly to the grand piano, her legs trembling. She sat down, closed her eyes, and let her hands find the keys. At first, the hall was silent. Then the first notes rang out, soft but clear. The melody grew, carrying her heart into the room. She played the song her father had taught her long ago, the one that carried both sorrow and hope. Her fingers moved as if guided by memory, her body swaying gently with the rhythm. The audience leaned forward, drawn by the purity of the sound. Some parents who had come only to see their own children now sat frozen, their eyes fixed on the small girl with the worn dress. The music rose higher, filling the hall with something more than sound. It was feeling deep and powerful, like a story without words. When the final note faded, silence filled the hall. Mira opened her eyes nervously, unsure of what she would see. Then the entire audience stood and clapped. The sound was louder than anything she had heard before. Some people cheered, some wiped tears from their eyes, and Tom jumped to his feet, shouting, "That's my sister!" Mira's cheeks burned with emotion. She stood, bowing shyly, unsure how to handle such praise. The teacher stepped forward, her face glowing with pride. "This," she said to the audience, "is why we believe music can come from anywhere. Talent has no address, no uniform, no wealth. It can be born in the simplest of places and yet shine brighter than the rest." The clapping grew louder. Mira looked at Tom, who was beaming, his little chest puffed with pride. She knew at that moment that her life was changing. The girl who once played only for bread was now playing for hearts. After the concert, many people came to speak with her. Some asked about her life, others praised her gift. One woman placed a warm hand on Mira's shoulder and said, "Never stop, child. You have something rare. The world needs to hear it." Mr. Allen also came to her side. His eyes sparkled behind his glasses as he said, "You see, Mira, you were ready. Tonight you showed everyone what I already knew. This is only the beginning." That night, as she and Tom walked home under the stars, Mira felt lighter than ever. She carried no food, no coins, not even her old piano. What she carried instead was a new kind of treasure. The applause still rang in her ears, the kind that promised a future. Tom skipped happily beside her. "Did you hear them, Mira? They loved you. One day you will play in front of the whole world." Mira smiled gently. "Maybe, Tom, but tonight I'm happy just to have played for you and for them." And deep inside, she knew her brother was right. The street had given her a beginning, but the stage was now calling her name. The morning after the concert, Mira woke with a strange mix of excitement and nervousness. The applause and cheers from the night before still echoed in her mind. Her small room felt different, as if the world itself had changed overnight. Tom was already awake, brushing crumbs from his small blanket. He looked up at Mira and smiled. "Did you sleep well, Mira?" he asked. "Yes," she said softly, though her mind was full of thoughts. "But I cannot stop thinking about the school and the concert and what comes next." Tom nodded. "I think you are ready for anything, Mira. You play from your heart, and that is what matters most." Mira hugged him, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with the morning sun. For months they had struggled just to survive. Now something bigger was beginning, and she was not sure if she was prepared. When they arrived at the school, Mr. Allen was waiting for them. Good morning, Mira, he said kindly. I hope you are ready. Today I want to introduce you to someone very special. Mira's curiosity grew. She followed Mr. Allen into a bright room filled with instruments of every kind. There a woman stood smiling, her eyes shining with kindness. This is Mrs. Rose, Mr. Allen said. She is the head teacher of our music program. She will help guide you in learning not only the piano, but also the language of music itself. Mira's heart raced. She had never imagined learning so much, yet she felt ready. Mrs. Rose knelt to Mira's height and extended her hand. I have heard about your talent. I am very glad you are here. Mira took her hand shyly. Thank you, ma'am, she said softly. The lessons that followed were different from anything Mira had experienced. She learned to read music, to understand rhythm and timing, and to express feelings through sound. Each note became a conversation, each melody a story. She practiced for hours, guided by Mrs. Rose while Tom waited nearby, drawing pictures of pianos and imagining her performing on great stages. One afternoon, Mira faced a difficult piece. Her fingers stumbled and frustration built inside her. She wanted to cry but remembered her father's words. Music is patience, he had said. Do not rush it. Let it grow with you. She closed her eyes and started again, slowly at first, then with confidence. Each note became clearer, stronger. When she finished, Mrs. Rose clapped softly. Excellent, Mira, that is progress. Remember, even the greatest musicians started small. Mira smiled, her cheeks glowing. She had learned that talent was only part of the journey. Hard work, patience, and heart mattered even more. The days passed quickly. Mira continued playing on the street each morning, earning coins for food while the afternoons were filled with lessons at the school. People who had seen her before came to watch her play again. Some brought small gifts like warm bread or fruit. The kindness of strangers reminded Mira that music had brought her not only skill, but also connection. One day, as she walked home with Tom, she noticed a small poster on a nearby wall. It announced a citywide talent show for young musicians. Mira stopped, her eyes wide. Tom, look. They want children to perform in front of the city. Maybe I could try. Tom's face lit up. Yes, Mira. You must do it. You will amaze everyone just like you did at the school concert. Mira hesitated. The thought of performing on such a large stage was frightening. But deep down she knew it was the next step. The street had been her beginning, the school had been her training, and now the city stage could be her chance to shine. That evening, Mira practiced longer than ever. She played the melodies she knew best and tried new ones Mrs. Rose had taught her. Each note was filled with hope, determination, and courage. Tom sat quietly nearby, listening as if he could absorb her music and give her strength. When she finally stopped, Mira looked at her brother. I will try, she said, her voice steady. I do not know what will happen, but I want to go. Tom hugged her tightly. You will do wonderfully, Mira. I believe in you, and so will everyone else soon. The next morning, Mira felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. The streets were bustling as usual, but her mind was on the city stage, the bright lights, and the faces she had never seen. She knew this was a new chapter in her life. The girl who had once played piano for food was now stepping toward something much bigger. Mira held Tom's hand tightly, and together they walked forward, ready for whatever the world had in store. The morning of the citywide talent show arrived with a clear sky and a gentle breeze. Mira woke early, her heart racing with excitement and fear. She dressed carefully in the simple but clean dress Mrs. Rose had helped her choose. It was not fancy like the other children might wear, but to Mira it felt special. Tom helped her tie her hair neatly, his small hands trembling as he adjusted the bow. You will shine, Mira, he whispered. Everyone will hear your music and feel it in their hearts. Mira nodded, trying to calm her nerves. She carried her small bag with the clothes she had changed into and the sheet music she had practiced for weeks. Outside, the streets were busy, but her mind was focused only on the stage. The city hall where the talent show was to be held looked enormous. Its tall doors and shining windows made Mira pause. She felt small in front of it, yet she remembered the street corner where she had first played for coins. That thought gave her courage. Inside the hall, the atmosphere was electric. Children from all over the city were performing. Some sang beautifully, others played violins or drums, and a few were already at the piano. The audience filled the rows of seats, their voices buzzing with excitement. Mira felt her hands grow cold as she took a seat backstage. Mrs. Rose knelt beside her and whispered, "Do not be afraid, Mira. Let your heart guide your fingers. That is what makes your music special." Mira took a deep breath. She thought about the street, the people who had stopped to listen, Mr. Allen and her little brother. She thought about her father and the songs he had taught her. Slowly, she felt the fear in her chest turn into determination. When her name was called, Mira walked to the grand piano on the stage. The lights were bright and the audience seemed enormous. Her legs trembled, but she took her seat and closed her eyes. The hall grew quiet, and for a moment Mira felt as if time itself had stopped. Then she began to play. The first notes were soft, almost like whispers, but they quickly grew in strength. Mira's fingers danced across the keys, telling the story of her life. She played the melodies of hope, struggle, and courage. Every note carried her heart, reaching the audience in ways words could not. The people in the front rows leaned forward, listening in silence. Parents held their children close, and some wiped tears from their eyes. Teachers and judges watched in astonishment. Even the children performing after her were captivated, forgetting their own nervousness as Mira's music filled the hall. As she continued, Mira's confidence grew. She remembered all the times she had played on the street, when only a few coins and a small cheer had encouraged her. Now the applause and admiration of hundreds of people filled the space around her. She felt her music lifting higher, carrying joy and strength to everyone who listened. When the last note faded, the hall stayed quiet for a heartbeat. Then suddenly it erupted in thunderous applause. People stood, clapping, cheering, and shouting words of praise. Mira opened her eyes and looked at the audience, her cheeks flushed with happiness and disbelief. Tom jumped to his feet, cheering louder than anyone else. "That is my sister," he shouted, his small voice carrying across the hall. Mira smiled and waved at him, feeling his love and pride wash over her. The judges came forward, their expressions amazed. "Your performance was extraordinary," one said. "The emotion, the skill, and the heart you put into every note is rare for someone your age. You have a gift that must be shared with the world." Mira felt tears fill her eyes, but she smiled. She remembered the days when she played only for food, when her tiny hands pressed the keys in hope and fear. Now she was standing on a stage, recognized not for her clothes or her past, but for the music she carried inside her. After the show, reporters and audience members came to speak with her. Many wanted to know her story, how she had started on the streets and now played with such mastery. Mira answered shyly, telling them about her father, her brother, and the piano that had been her friend through the hardest times. Mr. Allen and Mrs. Rose stood proudly beside her. "This is only the beginning," Mr. Allen said softly. "Your journey is just starting, Mira. Keep playing and your music will touch the lives of many more people." That night, as Mira and Tom walked home under the stars, she felt a new kind of happiness. The street that had once been her stage for coins was now a memory of where she began. She had music, support, and hope. The world was opening up to her, one note at a time. Tom looked up at her with sparkling eyes. "One day, Mira, you will play on stages even bigger than this. Everyone will know your name." Mira smiled, feeling the warmth of his words. "Maybe, Tom. But for now, I'm happy just to keep playing and to keep dreaming." And as they walked together, the city lights shining around them, Mira knew that her music had the power to change not only her life, but the lives of everyone who heard it. After the citywide talent show, Mira's life began to change in ways she had never imagined. The applause and recognition she had received opened doors that once seemed impossible. Music schools, teachers, and even kind strangers reached out to her, offering lessons, instruments, and opportunities. Yet Mira remained humble. She never forgot the streets where she had first played, the coins in her small tin cup, or the people who had stopped to listen. Every morning, Mira still visited the street corner with her piano. She played not for money anymore, but for the joy of sharing music. People still stopped to listen, some bringing flowers or treats for her and Tom. Mira smiled at them, remembering how every small act of kindness had guided her toward the life she now lived. Tom stayed by her side, always encouraging, always proud. "Mira, you have made the city stop and listen. You have changed lives with your music," he said one morning. Mira held his hand and nodded, feeling a warmth that went beyond words. At the school, Mira's lessons became more advanced. She learned to read complex sheet music, practice scales, and compose her own songs. Mrs. Rose guided her patiently, showing her that music was not only about skill, but also about telling a story through every note. Mira worked hard, sometimes late into the evenings, determined to honor the gift her father had left her. One afternoon, Mr. Allen called Mira into his office. "Mira, there is an opportunity I think you must consider," he said, a smile in his eyes. "A music festival is coming to the city. Talented children from all over the country will perform. I believe you can represent our school and show the world what you can do." Mira's heart leapt. The thought of performing on a stage larger than she had ever seen made her nervous. But she remembered the street corner, the small audiences and the first coins that had encouraged her. Slowly, a smile spread across her face. "I will do it," she said. In the weeks leading up to the festival, Mira practiced tirelessly. Her fingers moved faster. More confidently than ever, she played new compositions she had created, blending the lessons she learned with the melodies her father had taught her. Every day Tom watched, sometimes clapping along, sometimes simply holding her hand for support. Finally, the day of the festival arrived. The hall was enormous, filled with people from all over the country. Bright lights shone on the stage, and the audience buzzed with anticipation. Mira's heart raced as she stepped onto the stage. But when she saw Tom waving at her from the front row, her fear melted. She was ready. Mira sat at the grand piano and took a deep breath. She closed her eyes and let her hands find the keys. The music began softly, almost like a whisper, and then grew into a melody that filled the hall. Every note carried her story, her struggles, her dreams, and her hope. The audience listened in awe, silent at first, then leaning forward, caught in the magic of her music. When the final note ended, the hall erupted in applause. Mira opened her eyes and saw the faces of people she had never met, all cheering for her. She looked at Tom, who was clapping loudly, his face shining with pride. Mira felt tears in her eyes, but they were not tears of sadness. They were tears of joy, of accomplishment, and of the journey she had traveled from the streets to the stage. After the performance, people approached her, praising her talent and dedication. Journalists asked about her story, and Mira spoke humbly, telling them about her father, her brother, and the piano that had been her companion in hard times. Every word she spoke reminded her of where she had come from and the struggles she had overcome. Back at the school, Mr. Allen and Mrs. Rose hugged her tightly. "You have done more than play music today," Mr. Allen said. "You have inspired everyone who heard you. Your journey proves that no matter where you begin, dedication and heart can take you anywhere." That night, as Mira and Tom walked home under the stars, the city felt full of promise. The street that had once been her stage for coins was now a place of memories and gratitude. Mira knew that her life had changed forever. She had a home, a school, music to share, and people who believed in her. Tom looked up at her, his eyes sparkling. "Mira, everyone will remember you. You are no longer just the girl from the street. You are someone who brings music to the world." Mira smiled softly. "I will always remember the street, Tom. It gave me my music and my courage. But now it is time to keep dreaming, to keep playing, and to share my music with even more people." And so Mira continued to play, her music growing stronger, touching hearts, and inspiring hope wherever it traveled. The little girl who once played piano for food had become a symbol,